Hi, this is the Be Well with Michelle Greenwell podcast. Our heartwarming conversation is designed to lift you on your wellness journey. Grab your cup of tea and enjoy the podcast. Welcome everyone to the Be Well with Dr. Michelle Greenwell podcast. And today we begin a very special monthly series. This is with my dear friend and inspiring guest, Laurin Wittig. Laurin, thank you for coming and joining the show today.
Oh, thanks so much. You know how I love having conversations with you. This is going to be fun.
Laurin is an intuitive transformation mentor, founder of HeartLight Wellness and the HeartLight Women's Circles, host of the Curious Wise Practical Spirituality in Action podcast, and an award-winning author. She's also a co-facilitator of the Triple Goddess Women's Circle. She helps women step into their sovereignty, wisdom, and power so they can shine brightly. She helps them to thrive and be conscious creators of balance for themselves, their families, and their communities. She's a circle holder, an intuitive healer, a podcaster, and a novelist who brings strong women in history to life, often set in medieval Scotland. Laurin also has a degree in epistemology, and she brings that lens of curiosity and understanding to everything that she does. But today, this is where we're going to go. We're going to walk deeply into a personal journey with Laurin, and she is going to share more about how this degree has come around full circle, but also her diagnosis with precursors to dementia. And instead of shrinking back from the news, she's turned towards the energy medicine world, and she's seeking insights, tools, and empowerment. And she's inviting you along for this journey for your own self-discovery and awareness. So, deep conversation, but you know, I love the lightness that you always bring to everything, but the insights into energy. This is going to be amazing. Thank you, Laurin.
You're welcome. I love to share these things. It's what I do in my healing practice. Is I'm often working with people who have a similar journey to me. So it's come in very handy over the years to have lots of weird things in my life.
Now, when I went to get set up for this, I don't always pull cards, but Laurin, you love to pull cards, and my 3 decks were sitting on my desk. These are the ones that I've created. And they felt like they needed a voice today. So I'm going to bring them forward. So for those people listening, we're setting everything up. So as you listen, you have a healing session. The next part is you have education and insight. And when we get to the end, hopefully inspiration about things that you want to move forward with and continue to join along with us with Laurin's journey. So one of the card decks that I pulled was the Harmony Coasters. And this one is for unwinding trauma and building resiliency. And I wanted to know, where are we in your conversation? Because yes, you're kind of at the beginning of the journey, but not quite of the diagnosis part, because you've been living this for a while with family members that have also had dementia. And so the card that I ended up pulling is this beautiful little one. And this one is, position yourself into the true power of being. Find your roots and let them expand beneath you. Feel the strength, nourishment, circulation, and empowerment of connection. So I thought that's kind of interesting. So it's not the beginning of the journey. It's a little bit further in.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Wow. That's
note.
Amazing.
The note for this one is C. So for those people who are tuning into music or they like to sing, this is a great note to be able to resonate around and to bring harmony to it. And ginger comes up for strength and power for change. And ginger's come up a lot in the last couple of episodes. And the thing about it is ginger allows you to let go so you can receive. And sometimes, particularly with diagnosis, we grip onto the diagnosis part. There's no room left for receiving. So this is a beautiful way to think about how ginger, just by thinking about it or bringing it into your day, putting it in your tea, how it can bring it around. So And I think there is ginger in my tea today. So
There's not in mine, but I have several different varieties of my favorite teas that all have ginger in them. It's like my favorite, especially in the wintertime. I really love ginger teas. So yeah. Well,
they're
that's
coming to the table.
yeah.
Okay. So then the other card is from the Affirmations for the Body and the Biofield. Now this one has 4 decks in it. And so I'm just going to show you the cover for it. This one, all of the artwork has been done by Tanya Levy. And I should mention that because she's so amazing. And this is very similar to the other one, but in different colors.
Ooh.
So this one comes from Meeting the Divine. Balance with this chakra transcends personal experience and expectation to assist all others. Compassion and action is necessary for personal growth. Now, this becomes really interesting because, as I said at the beginning, you could have shrunk back and it's like, okay, I'm going to kind of go into my cocoon here and prepare. But instead you went, I'm going to go dig as much information as I can possibly find in many different ways. And how is that going to help others? Mm-hmm. And that compassion and action piece. So this is the 9th chakra and it's the soul star.
Ooh, okay.
So to be in tune with that is amazing. So we're bringing that along for the ride. And then my last card comes from It's in the Cards deck. And this one, I always look for what's the action item that we can play with. Mm-hmm. And what came up was the snake. Mm-hmm. So in Tai Chi, when we do creep low like the snake, it's a transition period, shedding our skin and coming out new. Now, it could be the green snake, so going down into the leaves, finding the roots and coming up like the tree, or it could be down into the water and cleansing and washing and replenishing. In this case, it's part of the metal element. So for those people not familiar with traditional Chinese medicine and the 5-element theory, this is related to grief, guilt, and regret. And all of those emotions, I'm sure you've been through, Laurin, as you've been, finding your way of how am I going to navigate this and those coming forward. So creeping low like the snake, the sound is S. So being able to just do an S sound. So for those people listening, you might want to add that into some of the things you're doing today. And creeping low like a snake is you're going down on one leg and then you transfer over to the other. But I would invite people to whatever movement pattern kind of makes them feel like they're shifting and moving, go with it. And that would be fine too. So, yeah. All right.
Cards are so awesome. All right, go ahead.
No, it's great. It's lovely. I love pulling the harmony coasters and knowing where we are in the conversation because it kind of changes the way we talk about things or what I'm going to ask. So even though we've prepared, now there might be something different that comes forward because of the perspective we're sitting at. So, Okay, so with that in mind, now we need to bring in the herbs because the herbs want to lift us up. They want to really be a part of our conversations. What did you put in your mug today?
I have Tulsi cinnamon rose. I needed a little spice today. Mm-hmm. I love rose because it's so soothing and it's calm to me. And so that's what I'm drinking. And I'm drinking it, I have to say, in this cup. A friend of mine gave this to me years ago. It says on it, I don't know if you can read it there, but it says, imagination creates beauty, builds dreams, and gives us hope. Wow. And so I think that's like a great thing to live by. And so that's what I'm doing right now, using my imagination, among other things.
All right. So now for those people listening, if you're new to the podcast, when something comes up that you want to put into flow, that's when you want to sip on the tea. So as we're going through the conversation and there's something that really appeals to you, have a sip. So let's sip now because we've brought a lot in and that mug just kind of solidifies everything. So cheers, Laurin.
Cheers.
All right. So I'm going to bring in Tea Lightful. And this is a blend of fireweed, dandelion petals, ginger, hibiscus, and vanilla. And the affirmation on it, I'm just going to pull the package up. This one is stop time with this ancient combination from the garden. Now, you enjoy diving into history and bringing stories out. You also enjoy genealogy and finding out what's happened in the past for your family. But then we have this stop time piece, which is to be able to just sit in the present. And so as people are listening, I'm inviting you to think about where in your day can you just have time stop for you? And when you do, what do you notice around you and what might come forward? All right. And let's just go into a little bit about the fireweed, the dandelion, and of course, ginger. Ginger's going to have to come along.
Ginger for the day.
So this tea is an invitation to connect with ancient wisdom. And fireweed is one of the first plants that regrows after there's been a devastation. So it might be a forest fire, something's been cleared out. It teaches us about renewal and the possibility of thriving after a challenge. And if you haven't seen the fireweed plant, it's a very tall stalk. It has very thin leaves that come off on the side, usually in a pattern of 4. But the top part is this bright pink, beautiful flower. And right now the stalks of that are like well over a foot long, the ones around here. And so I've actually even been harvesting the petals and the fireweed leaf and putting them together. It's just such a beautiful plant. Mm-hmm. We're also going to bring along dandelion petals. And this is golden like the sun until you dry it. Then it turns into a fluffy thing and floats in the air while I'm mixing. And this one is about carrying vitality, clarity, and then the strength to stand tall, even in adversity. Now, we know that about the dandelion plant, and we know about the roots because that's where most people go, but most people don't think about the petals and the way the flower is structured, and it's got square petals, a rectangular shape. It does not have rounded edges, which is really interesting.
Never thought about that.
So ginger is the other piece, bringing warmth and courage to take the next step. Hibiscus is going to open our heart to beauty and emotional flow. And the vanilla is going to comfort, bring grounding, and a reminder that sweetness can be found even in the uncertain times. All right, with all that, we're going to take this into a spiritual aspect, which is pausing our rushing life, receive deep wisdom from our ancestors and the earth, and remind ourselves that healing doesn't always come from pushing forward, but it comes from stopping, listening, letting our soul catch up with our body and where we are in time. So with that, I would invite you to hold your cup one more time. And I'm holding a Colton McDonnell mug, which has Cape Breton Island on it, and just the pottery, being able to put my hands on it. So cheers. Thank you so much for the conversation. Okay. Now, this little ritual with tea, I'm just bringing to the mind for those people listening, is something you can do every day, not just because you're listening to the podcast, but please consider bringing it in every day. It gives you a chance to pause, receive wisdom, and move forward with grace. And this is a way that we can really bring peace into our day and into our lives. And so often that's what we're looking for, but we don't realize. So now what I want to do is frame our conversation with a few little notes about dementia so people have an idea. So in general terms, dementia is about the decline in cognitive function, has to do with memory, thinking, and reasoning. And it can be severe enough to interfere with daily life. And the World Health Organization states there's over 55 million people living with dementia worldwide, which is unbelievable. Alzheimer's disease is the most often the common form. While genetics can play a role, research shows that lifestyle, environment, and stress patterns also have profound impacts on risk and progression. And you've discovered that already because you immediately made changes to the way you're running your life.
I was really lucky. I had started working with a functional medicine doctor um, about 9 months ago. And he was the one when I went to him, he asked, what is it that you're most interested in, healing? And I said, well, my mother was diagnosed with dementia at about 72. And I know already that dementia can be starting 10 years or even decades before that. And so I want to find out if I'm at risk and also what I can do to ameliorate or to avoid that, as much as possible. So he did the genetic test for me, and I came back with a positive for Alzheimer's, the Alzheimer's gene. Um, and just a little bit of information about that, because I think it can scare people. A lot of people don't want to know, and that's fine. But I have, like, as you mentioned, I have a degree in epidemiology, as we call it here in the States. And and so I have always used that to delve into health issues. My son, as a little kid, was very sick, and I used those skills to figure out what I needed to do for him, what his best use was and stuff. And actually, that was our introductory to Chinese medicine, because I took him to an acupuncturist. But so that doctor really did already have me set on a course to ameliorate a lot of these things that can trigger the gene to activate. And so the major one was cortisol, which is the stress hormone. And I mean, he was like, it's off. Literally, it was off the charts for part of the day. And so that he had already started me on that, started getting my gut in better health. And those are things that are just for overall health are really important. But for those of us who have that gene that could be turned on, that stress factor is huge. And our environment is very stressful. Whether you're talking personal or global, it's very stressful. And not just in a mental, emotional way. I was reading yesterday about how the hearing of autistic kids is often very, very sensitive, so it's hard for them. And that is partly because they're just exposed to so much noise, physical noise. It's that they're starting to posit that might be part of that evolution of autism. And I'm only just learning about that, so I can't go very deep into it. But so yeah, so I already had recruited help in the medical community, but they do just a ton of testing. So everything that doctor is suggesting for me is based on tests that he's done, not just on you're 65 years old and your gut's got to be out of shape. So we're going to add you this, you know, and so anything he prescribes to me is usually a supplement, and it's plant derived for the most part, and I can always say, well, what's this going to do? And he'll tell me. Um, so yeah, but the stress is the biggie. It's a really biggie. So I can't remember what your question was. So I don't know if I went down a
We
rabbit
didn't
hole.
get to one yet, so you're good.
All right. Yeah.
We're just doing the background. But interesting, I have a colleague that just spent the better part of a month in beautiful paradise. So there was no electronics. Everything was, you walked barefoot everywhere you were going. Everything was connected to the water, all natural. And she was offering treatment sessions.
Mm-hmm.
And she said it took her a good week before she really started to get so comfortable and softened into nature. But then the emotions started coming out, because now they weren't being bombarded by all the things that we're bombarded to in, I guess, civilization and
Mm-hmm.
cities. And then she kind of was working through all those emotions. And now she's back home in concrete and everything
Mm-hmm.
else in a big city. And she said it's interesting now to see how the body is going to close that back up. And so I'm just inviting those people listening that we don't think about that. We've been living in our environment for so long, we just think that's normal.
Yeah.
And it's not normal. It's not. How often are your feet going into the grass and connecting to the ground? And if you go for a walk, but you're wearing running shoes, which are plastic, you're not connecting to the ground. You're connecting a little bit in nature, but not really connecting to nature.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So cortisol levels, you might be able to bring them down a little bit, but then it's going to be really fast before they're already back into the next situation. And
Yeah. And that has spurred me to change a lot of things in my life that I didn't realize were stressing me. Until I went, because I was like, why am I so stressed? My kids are launched into their own lives. They're happy. They're off on the West Coast, and living, a good life. And all of our parents are gone. So I don't have any, of my parents or in-laws to worry about or take care of. I have no responsibilities except to my husband and my dog and myself, at this point, because I shut down my business. That was the thing that was stressing me out because I was trying to be an entrepreneur. And I was never meant to be an entrepreneur. I love doing the healing work. I do not like running a business. So now I just do it for fun. Yeah. So that was a massive change.
Yeah. Okay, this is not even on the radar of the questions where we were going. But as you were making that choice to let go of that, like you said, you enjoy doing the healing work. What was that? What was that like? So when you have the discovery of, I didn't even want to be the entrepreneur. So letting go of business was easy, but then letting go of that persona of who you are as the healer and the things that you've been doing. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, there was some grief with it because it was a failure, but and it's still, I'm still feeling it, obviously. But it was the right thing to do for me. And this is a time in my life when I have the space and the financial support because my husband makes a very good living for us. Um, I have the space and the time and financial stability to take care of me. I raised two kids. I had a mother with dementia for 10 years who lived locally, so I was, involved in that quite a bit. And I always thought I should be earning money for the family. My husband goes, "We got plenty of money. You should stop doing your business. If that's what's stressing you out, stop." I was like, okay. I almost needed permission, because I've been thinking about it and thinking about it, but I felt like I was going to let him down and put myself down. And I'm still processing that,
Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's hard to let go of something you've tried to make successful for 8 years
Yeah.
and that is part of my identity, So
Yeah.
still working on that
Yeah.
one.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because that all does get woven together,
Yeah.
particularly for women, as we try to match what our husbands bring in and try to
Mm-hmm.
match. And we're doing compassionate work. So we're
Yeah.
also trying to give back to the world. And that's where we find a lot of value is in how much can we offer back.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
Cool.
I have a few people who stuck with me and I just do it for fun, and I love doing that work. I mean, I think I get as much joy out of it as the people I work with. So I kind of went back to the early days. Beginner's mind has been a theme for me in the last year or so. And going back to beginner's mind with this talent I have, this gift that I have, is I just want to play with it. I want to see what I can do to help people. I want to listen to spirit. Because I don't know. You've never had a healing session with me, so you don't know. I pull from all kinds of different places. I channel people's guides. I channel my own guides. It's just, I feel so good when I do that work. I feel like I'm doing good, but I also know that it's just as much for me. And so I do that part. I do the joyful part. I let
Mhm.
go of the part that stressed me out. You and it has been an identity shift for me. I'm not looking to be a guest on podcasts now because what do I have to say? It's like I can say all the same stuff, but I don't have that sort of legitimacy of being a valid guest if I'm not running a business or, it's like, so, but you were very kind and invited me to come be on your show.
Because you do have a lot to say and you do have a lot of wisdom, and your approach is completely different than how people will approach getting a diagnosis and then either being unempowered or choose to not be empowered. And sometimes that's just the protective piece and that's all they know. But we really want to shine a light on the fact that there is so much possible and we don't know then. We don't know where that's going to take us. So that's the journey we'd like everybody to be a part of. So
yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so now I'm going to turn to the questions that we thought we would be asking today. I just love the universe. So you did explain a little bit about how you had already, as a precursor, found someone who could check those markers for you. What made you even think to go do that? Because I don't think most people would even think that's going to be something they should do. So what was that? And then if they wanted to do that, who else can do that besides the person you chose?
Mm-hmm. So this is where my epidemiology background comes in. I have a master's of public health, and I never actually went into the field, but I have used this knowledge of how to trace. Epidemiology is all about the study of things like COVID, the study of epidemics and how diseases are traveling. A lot of it is environmental stuff. So we were taught to, look for things that are waterborne and then how do you fix that? So, if you look at history, this has always been an issue is where are these things coming from, these pathogens? So I looked at my family tree. I was devastated by my mother. She was always difficult. She was a narcissist. And now she has dementia. And you want to talk about a stubborn personality. And I watched her for 10 years just decline and decline and decline. And she'd been a very intelligent woman. She'd worked all over the world with helping other women with economic development in third world countries. She had just had this amazing life. And yet she just disappeared. It's like pieces of her, and it was her intellect first that went. And she just was really, really difficult towards the end, really difficult. And I still have PTSD when my phone rings. It's like that. But so I knew that she did, but I also knew her mother had it. My grandmother was one of the sweetest people in the world, and she just got sweeter and sweeter. So that was a benefit there. But I also knew that my grandmother's great aunt, who was a blood relation, not a married relation, had it, had dementia. And I don't know how far behind that, it might track. But once I had the doctor there's a genetic test that they can look at your genes, and there's a very specific gene. It's called the APOE gene. I'm going to get a little technical here for just a sec. You get two versions of that gene. You get one from your father, one from your mother. And for some reason, they use the numbers 2, 3, and 4 to differentiate the variants of it. So just like COVID has a variant, or the flu has a variant, this gene has variants. And most people in the world have a number 3 gene and another number 3 gene. They have two of them, one from dad, one from mom. And that is like 70% of the population of the US at least. And the low risk for dementia is just sort of normal people. If you have a 2, you're at a really low risk. If you have a 2 and a 2, you can mix them up. So you could have a 3 and a 2. But if you have a 2 and a 2, you got almost no risk at all. It's like 6% maybe of that population. If you have a 4, that's what they're calling the Alzheimer's variant of this particular gene. And I have a 3 and a 4. And since I can look at my dad's family and I can look back several generations there, and there was no dementia in that family, none. And the ladies in that family, the aunts, they lived into their 90s independently, and with, full cognition. I mean, they were slowed down a little bit, but there was no dementia there. On my mother's side, there's 4 generations back, or three, me counting my generation with this gene. I'm the oldest of my cohort of this generation. And so I'm a leader for all of my 9 first cousins, it's like, and I know in my mom's family, there's 5 kids. She was the eldest, and only one of them has not shown up with dementia. The other 4 have it. My grandmother was the oldest of 4 girls, and I know 2 of them had dementia. I don't know about the 4th one because she was the baby of that family, and I kind of lost track over the years. And then I don't know about the previous generation, how many, but I could see this pattern. And so that was why I was like, when the doctor said we can test for that genetically, I'm like, do it. It's not without grief or without fear of what you find out. It can be very, if you come back with no 4s, great, then you're all clear. And one of my first cousins is that way. She has neither of them, no 4s. And my other cousins are getting themselves tested now because I have said, here's what you need to do. So having that genetic test done really sort of clicked everything into place for me, that this really is genetic. It is also environmental, because that can be what triggers it. But there is a genetic tendency in that direction in my mother's line. And so that's where the epidemiologies really come in. Then I start going, okay, I need to learn more about this. And the universe provides. So one of the things that I get with this functional medicine practice is I get a health coach, and I get like 4 sessions with her. And so I had I think my second session with her after I found this out. And so I was talking to her about it. Turns out she has the same genes, same, even 3 or 4. So she said, you have to read this book. And so I'm going to show it. So it's this book, The End of Alzheimer's Program, by Dr. I don't know whether it's Brederson or Breederson. I don't know how to pronounce it. I have dog-eared, highlighted, and gone back to my doctor with questions about it. And I'm still trying to implement a lot of what I learned from this. For me, so far, the diet change is the hardest, just because you got to be careful about this, that, and the other thing. I'm not going to go into the details of that. So, but that really educated me, so that when my doctor said, you need to do this, you need to get the cortisol down, you need to get this down, it suddenly made sense to me, like pieces of puzzles coming together. He's already been preparing me for this. And then we've added a lot of brain support supplements in the last little bit of time, because we discovered there was another blood test he did recently where they can test for a protein that gets created by your brain if you have those amyloid plaques that you hear about in Alzheimer's. And it came back not terribly high, but it did come back with a positive number. And that one really freaked me out. So that's when he's like, okay, we're going to crank it up, and we're going to do some more. I have only been on those for a couple of weeks, so I can't say that one way or the other if they're making a difference yet. I love, though, that one of the first things he added was lion's mane, which is a fungus, a mushroom that is well known, especially in the Asian kind of medical cultures, for being very good for your brain. So I was really happy to see that would be one of them. Most of them are oils. And so that's, the brain needs a lot of fat, and apparently that's a good way. These are particularly designed to go to your brain. So it's been the epidemiology degree that taught me how to look for patterns. And I've said this a couple of times. I have this amazing ability to see patterns where other people don't. I have my whole life. And I've described it to you, Michelle, before, that I know I am here to be a pattern breaker. I helped my dad break the pattern of alcoholism in his family. And nobody who's come after him is an alcoholic. And he had 4 siblings behind him. Actually, I think one of them might be, but one of his sisters. But the next generation is good. So we've done that. I helped friends with, parents who had alcoholism back in those days. I was 21 when I did this. So that idea of taking what I'm learning and sharing it with others who can benefit from it is a pattern for me. So the epidemiology pattern, looking for patterns is very intuitive for me. And it really did help me kind of put things into place, and still is, because I'm still learning. And I'm going to be learning for a long time about this. So
it's really interesting, because people we have the blanket piece, right? Get plenty of rest, eat well,
exercise,
and it's like in our minds, because we don't know anything else, the patterns we have, we think we're doing a good job. Or we think we're doing an okay job, but we're not really pressured to make any changes because
this is a motivator. This is definitely a motivator for change.
And to think about, how do I want my brain functioning as I get older? Nobody's thinking about that. They're thinking about, as I get older, things will fade. But do they? Do they only fade because you didn't pay attention? And if you had paid attention, it would be a very different kind of aging.
Well, and one of the things that I had heard, do puzzles and all this, to keep your brain busy. I'm reading another book. I'm gonna put it up here. I'm still reading this one, The Brain That Changes Itself. It's fascinating. I will say that there is a fair amount of conversation in there about animal experiments, which is a little icky, but so just a trigger warning. But I'm learning from that it's not just learning or not just working puzzles, because I do, crossword puzzles and jigsaw puzzles and have my whole life. But it's about making new connections and creating a pattern in them to keep building and to keep triggering the brain derived neurotrophic factor, which is the hormone that helps you learn things. We shut that down a lot, and I think the Alzheimer's particularly, shuts it down pretty fast. But it was interesting to me that it's about, because you had talked to me a little bit about movement and moving in different directions, so your brain has to adjust in different ways, and the repetition of that actually strengthens those new connections. What's the phrase? What fires together wires together. So as you practicing those patterns, it is actually creating new connections in your brain, but the repetition is needed, according to this book. And I'm only a quarter of the way through it. Fascinated by it. So for me, that was a big aha just yesterday. It was when I was reading that, because I have been doing puzzles for years. Well, I'm just using the same neurons there. It's there. I got to look for little different words or stuff, but it's the same pattern of thinking.
Yes.
And what I've added in the last year and a half that I think is really, like you had told me, moving in lots of different directions, and is line dancing. Because you're moving in every direction, you're turning around, you're getting your hands up in the air, you're doing all these things. And I recognize that I'm beginning to my body knows some of the dances, but she's always introducing new dances in class. So it's always my brain going, what? And I can feel my brain get tired. I do. I feel my brain get tired. My feet are not talking to my brain quite as effectively at the end of the 2 hours. But that's good. That means I've been working, right? I've been making my brain work in ways it's not in that rut with. So that's a piece that I didn't really understand until literally yesterday. So I just want to put that out there too.
Yeah, and that's the thing with Tai Chi is, you're right. The intricacy of how we can move in Tai Chi. We have a structural way, which is how most people do Tai Chi, and that's that I'm going to learn the 108 moving meditation, and as long as I know that pattern, that's fine. But there's a deeper piece going on, and that deeper piece is multidimensionally working if you're present to it. Because it would be very easy to just move. I want to say like line dancing, because line dancing is multidimensional in all the way it's
Yeah.
going. But if you're moving, so you just structurally put everything in place, but you're not really challenging anything, or you're not being more aware, going deeper into what is the experience of the movement. It's when you get into that juicy piece,
Mm-hmm.
that's when that wiring becomes so interesting, because you've never, well, for me, I never moved the same way twice
Mm-hmm.
in a pattern. And it looks the same to the observer, but inside there's so much going on, and every day's different. And emotionally, we're different every day. And so the way that we feel it and sense it. So there's just so much to movement, and people are so frozen now in their car driving.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, how much time they spend scrolling on their phones, watching the tablets, sitting at the computer. There's just so much sedentary living.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what you're discovering then is the truth for our way of living, is that we're not helping our brains. We are really leading them down the road, especially if you're looking at 55 million people. That's a lot of people.
Yeah.
And is it necessary? Is it just because we got into those patterns and we just never got back out of them? Yeah.
Yeah. And that's actually been one of the blessings of giving up my business. I'm very seldom behind the computer anymore. And
I'm very jealous.
I'll get people who say, I emailed you like 3 days ago. Did you get it? It's like, oh yeah, I did see that, but I just haven't responded to it yet. It's like, I will check my email pretty much once a day. And if it's not urgent, you may not get a reply from me for a while. But so the other thing that has done is it's freed me up. I mean, I'm cleaning my house more, which is it needed, but that gets me moving in different ways. And I'm taking the dog out for more walks, so that gets me outside more. I'm meeting up with more friends for like coffee or lunch or whatever. So I'm bringing in the social aspect, and these are friends that I have deep conversations with, um, so it has really to let go of that stressor and then be able to add in all of these other things that I was saying someday I'll do that. Well, I'm 65 years old. It's like
Today's someday.
You better do it now. Which I kind of learned with the pandemic too. It's like if you want to do something, do it now, because you don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
And more in that kind of world here. So yeah, I just wanted to bring that forth too, that there is this different kind of pattern making that we can do. And there's lots of different ways to do it, but I like having broken the pattern of sitting in front of my computer most of the day. And now I'm even doing things like I'm finding different places in the house to sit and read, just a little different environment each time.
Yep.
And so the table's in a different place for my cup of tea every time too. So I'm just trying to mix it up more, and it's been I feel much healthier. And it's only been really, I mean, I shut the business down at the end of December, but it's only really been in the last couple of months that I've really brought a lot of this stuff in, and I'm still learning, and the more I learn, the better, because then I can be an advocate for myself. And my mom was put on so many medications that now they're showing increases your chance of dementia. It's like,
They're not measuring that, and we're not thinking about it. It's to solve the problem right now.
yeah.
And we're not thinking the long term. What is that going to mean down the road?
Right.
Yeah.
And that's where the functional medicine paradigm really is about: how do we maintain health as we age? How do we improve health? How do we make your life better, rather than declining into this, myriad of pharmaceuticals and, I don't know any older people that haven't had at least one joint replaced. I want to grow old like my great aunts did, the ones that didn't have dementia. They had a good life, right? And well into their 90s. That's what I want to do. So.
And I was mentioning to a colleague today, my parents, and my parents are 84,
Hmm.
and they teach 5 Tai Chi classes a week, each of them. And, they're like, they run circles around me.
Hmm.
And it's really amazing to see the power of that regular practice that they have. And they're very diligent about where they put their Tai Chi in for their own personal, plus what they teach.
Hmm.
My dad does not start his day until he's done all of the warm ups that he has set out. And it works.
Yeah.
It works. It's
Yeah.
amazing. So, okay. So let's move from question one down to the next one. Um, Now, you did talk a little bit about this, but let's pull into this in a slightly different way. So you got the results, you've got the 3 and the 4,
Hmm.
you have the emotional, oh my goodness, now what am I going to do with that information? Do you want to share with people what your approach was? Because you went active, you didn't sit back, but I know you had the emotions too.
Yeah, and I mean, I always go active. I learned to do that with my son because from the time he was born, he was sickly, and I had to be his advocate, and I had to know what was going on. But so I always go active, but I gave myself some time to be sad, to grieve, and that's still coming up.
Yeah.
Because I have learned, I mean, losing your parents and your beloved in-laws, and you learn that grief is not a one and done. Grief is a journey. And I still grieve that my dad's not with me and he died in 2001. So it's not as hard anymore. But so I let myself grieve. I let myself cry. I often will let myself do that, but then I sit down and meditate and bring myself back into my body because it's like fear, energetically, I'm just not there. So I will meditate or I'll go walk in nature. Now it's been so awful hot here in Virginia for most of the summer, and it's still really, really heavy air, humid, that I don't get into the woods like I do the rest of the year. But I live in a very heavily wooded neighborhood with lots of places, pretty places to walk, so I can at least get that. Um, and then I have friends who know what I'm going through. I had 3 healing sessions in about 6 days because I happened to be talking to friends and telling them about this, and they're like, "Okay, come on." You know? And Michelle was one of them. When we just hopped on to have a conversation because we like to do that. And so the universe provides if you let it, but I think you need to let yourself grieve. It is sad. It is hard. It's scary. Especially if you have already experienced, somebody who's had it, you know how bad it can be, and not really just for the person, but for the family. I don't want to do that to my family, you know. um, so, so I think it's important that you allow yourself to grieve. It's okay to be scared. It's okay to be fearful. Those are normal. This is a big deal. It's a big change, and you don't know if it's going to happen or when, if it does happen, when you're going to start seeing the symptoms of it. And I'm
Yeah.
65, so I'm looking probably if I were to follow my mother's footsteps, I'd probably already be showing some mild cognitive decline. We just didn't really know how to name it back then. Back then, it wasn't that long ago. She died in 2019. So, but give yourself some grace. You're human. You're going to have emotions. This is not easy. It's not fun. It's scary to everybody around you too. And then call in your community. If you don't have a community, connect with one. I have not done this yet, but I do know that with my mom, I learned about a local Alzheimer's support group for family and the patients.
Mm.
Um, And so that's on my list of things to look into, but I haven't. I'm also not trying to do everything at once because that just overwhelms me and I'll shut down.
Right.
So, step by step, educate yourself. There's these wonderful books and doctors on YouTube that, you find somebody you trust with the information, but who are talking about the research, and it's changing fast. It's changing what they know about dementia really fast. And it's more and more environmental and this lifestyle stuff than it is the gene. So we can be empowered to take it into our own hands. Can't guarantee that I'm not going to end up having dementia somewhere down the line, but I'm going to, I have hope. Hope is important. And I'm starting earlier than my mom did in terms of taking care of myself. She never really took care of her body. And I have, I've got the proper medical system behind me, and I've got friends in the energetic field who are really, I think, the most important. Because I know as a healer, it's our energy that causes problems in the body. If we've got blockages, we're holding on to old things. And so for me, that's going to be a big factor that the mainstream, even the functional medicine doctors, don't really talk about. Even something as simple as Reiki. Tai Chi is, I have looked up at my local rec center. They have a new class starting in the fall. I will be having Tai Chi. Perfect. So, but there's so many resources out there. And I live in a town. I don't live in a city. And yet we have a lot of retirees here. So we have a lot of resources around this kind of thing. But you can empower yourself. Challenge accepted. I've got the gene, I've got a little bit of this protein, but I'm also reading that it's really not the plaques that are the problem, it's other things. And that was actually, the universe brought that other book to me, the one about the brain that changes itself. And I read just the first part of it, and that information came forth, and I thought, so just because that protein is in my blood does not mean I have Alzheimer's already starting. Mm-hmm. And just that piece of information really helped me to sit back and go, okay, I'm not going to let myself go down into depression. I'm not going to fall into that trap. I have all of these resources and all these different kinds of folks who can help me, and I'm going to take advantage of all of it. But I'm going to do it from a place of an educated mind, of at least continuing to educate myself about what we can do to take control of our own future. So,
and I think a piece that you talked about, but not in this way, not the way I'm going to bring it up, is the approach that you take. So when you're finding joy and when you're bringing everything into balance and the body is feeling good, mm-hmm. you aren't going to be the irritable, grouchy person as you were describing your different family members and what mm-hmm. happened for them. So if you're stuck and you haven't done releasing emotions and patterns and pieces, you could be really a tyrant when it comes to navigating that disease. But then you have the choice to change that. And so the difference for family members, because like you said, your aunt or your grandmother was, she was joyful.
Yeah.
And that's a very different, if you go in and you see that, she's feeling okay where she's at, and mm-hmm. you can have some kind of conversation, but you're not getting barked at or the anger's coming out, right?
Which was my mother. My mother was anger, come get me out of here. She said some terrible things to me towards the end, and it's just like, okay, kind of let it roll.
Yeah. So that opportunity. So I'm just bringing that forward because as people are listening, we have a choice on how much time we spend on ourselves and releasing things and bringing things into balance and flow. And like you're doing all those different additions that are now going to be lifting everything up. That's a very different experience of whether it's mental clarity at the end or mental decline, if that's the case.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you need to know yourself. You need to know what it is that brings you joy. I started line dancing long before. I've been doing it for a year and a half. I only found out all this in the last 6 or 8 months. I just have so much fun doing line dancing that I want to go. I was never one to exercise. I hated exercise. I'll walk in the woods, but I don't want to exercise. No, I 2 hours it's a lot of exercise. I'm always a sweaty mess at the end of it. But I really enjoy it, and I'm starting to make friends there, and go out and do social things with some of the people, and that's important too, because it brings me joy. That social connection is joyful to me, and the moving the body in a way that's fun is important to me. I know I should be doing, weight bearing exercises, but going to the gym is just like, so I do my squats in the kitchen. It's like, but so if you know what is going to motivate you, and for me, it has to be fun. If it's not fun, it's not worth doing. you know? So I know that I have to look for those things, exercise wise. I'm bringing my French back up to speed from high school and college. But I have a friend who we meet now once a month to speak French with each other for an hour because it's fun, and we go to a nice coffee shop. So I know for me, it's got to either intrigue me or be really fun. Otherwise, I'm probably not going to keep it up. And so that helps me to discern how do I bring this aspect of what's good for me into my life in a way that I'm going to enjoy. And I'm not going to do it if it makes me mad or, just feeling belligerent because I got to go to the gym,
Yeah, exactly.
So for me, yeah, it's a lot of it. And that's spiritually, I know that one of my purposes here is to bring the light. And I know that if you go out into the world feeling good, people around you start to kind of catch that, and so if I'm feeling bad about this possibility for my future, and I'm dragging that around with me all the time, that's going to rub off on other people, and I don't want to spread that. So I'd rather be the light. I'd rather do things that I enjoy so I can be that more uplifted energy. And that to me is really critical. I feel very strongly that that's something I need to make sure that I'm not dragging anybody else down. And I don't want to drag myself down. And so for me, that's spiritually, that's a really important sort of marching order that I got from Spirit a long time ago, but hey, it makes me happy to do that. So, so I think it's really, really important to look inside and see how can if you feel like you're in this position where you need to do something, or you get the diagnosis, the gene thing, it's important to go, okay, what is going to make me happy? How can I bring joy to this process? Not that there's not going to be moments of fear, not that there's not going to be moments of grief. Fine, it's life is not a single note. It's a symphony, and we have to roll with that. And I will feel grief in a few moments, but then I can feel joy a few minutes later, or maybe I have to meditate to get myself back to a place of quiet, and where I can then choose a little bit easier how I want to feel. So I think that's a really important lesson that I've learned. I've known it about myself for a long time, but it's really been brought home with this diagnosis, because I know I want to do these things, but I got to make it fun. So it's a choice.
Yeah. Beautiful. All right. So you answered my third question, which is perfect. And we've talked a little bit about the generations and backgrounds, that you're a pattern changer. And then looking at family history. So if we know, with what you've already shared so far, we know about family traumas and history and pieces, I'd like to bring in a little bit about your writing and your love of historical Scotland, and how is that motivating you to find out the stories of your family and how things have come before?
Well, I was brought up in a strongly Scottish leaning family. My mother's maiden name is Magruder, which is part of the MacGregor clan. And my grandfather, her dad, was the chieftain of the American Clan Gregor Society back in the 50s. He had a kilt. Do not call it a skirt. You know, he'd get livid if you called it a skirt. And so I was from the time I was 10, I was taken to my first gathering, clan gathering. That happened to be here in Virginia. I lived in Mississippi. But so I got steeped in that Scottish lineage very, very early. And it was, I mean, it was front and center in my grandfather's identity of himself. And so I got to go to Scotland for the first time when I was 11. I fell in love with the place. So I just really was fascinated by the place, more than the people, but just it was my experience at 11 was it was a magical place. And I know now I was feeling the energy of it because I've been back as an adult, not in a long time, but it is truly a magical land, especially the Highlands, which is where, the clans were from. And so I think the Braveheart movie came out with Mel Gibson, and I was really fascinated with that era, that medieval era around 1300. But I also had discovered that there were romance novels that were set in Scotland. And I started to devour those, and many of them are medieval. That I love that period because magic was a part of the culture at the time. You had seers, you had healers, you had all of that kind of stuff, and it was just part of the culture. People accepted it. Um, um, it was you could have manly men, but women in the clans could also be the head of the clan. So there was much more equality between the men and women at that, in that stage, in that culture. I also have an anthropology degree, a cultural anthropology degree. It's my undergraduate degree. Of course. So I loved going into the archaeology and seeing, learning a lot about the culture from the artifacts, because the Scottish clans were non-literate, which means they weren't illiterate. They just didn't have a written language. So unless you go to the courts, you don't really learn much about what life was like for the clans. And I went back for a research trip with a buddy who was also writing set in that time. We spent a week going medieval castles all over Scotland. It was magical. So I loved all of that. But I realized just recently, and I think it was when I was talking to you a couple of weeks ago, that I don't know anything about my grandmother's line. That was my grandfather's line. My grandmother was a Murphy, so Irish. And I got in contact with my cousin who my grandmother did a whole lot of genealogy work on both sides of the family. And so I knew where to go in the family to get that information, because my cousin Marjorie has all of that stuff. And she pulled out what she could of the Murphy line, and it only goes about 3 to 4 generations back, and then nothing. And so I don't know if there is a family trauma that happened in that line that is part of the energetics of this gene being passed down through the generations. I suspect there is. I'm not a genealogy person, but I am a shaman, and I can journey, which is the shaman. It's a very meditative, if you're not familiar with it, it's a very meditative state that shaman can go into and commune with nature or their guides, or take journeys for healing. There's all kinds of things that you can do in a shamanic journey. But I suspect, and I just haven't had the quiet in my house since I thought of this, but I suspect that I can do a journey and learn more about that. And if I can do that, then I can get one of you who do energetic healings to help me go back to that and heal that, and then that'll carry forward through the generations. Because my children haven't been tested, and I'm hoping that they didn't get this, but if they did, I don't want them to have to suffer through it either. And so that is my plan at the moment in terms of spiritual healing, energetic healing, is to do a journey for myself. And then what I do find, and I think most healers feel, is it's really find this. It's really hard to heal yourself. So I will call in one of my buddies and get them to help me do that. And I'm really fascinated. We'll talk about that, I guess, in a future episode. But I'm really fascinated to see what I can learn that way, and what we can heal. Because their Irish is very likely trauma back in Ireland that drove them to this country. The Magruders, by the way, got driven out of Scotland because they were the troublemakers, and my direct descendant was a horse thief. So
we don't know where that's going to go in our conversations in the coming months.
Right. So there's a lot of history that I don't know about Ireland. I never was pointed at Ireland before, but now I really am. And so I got to learn more of the history of that. So that'll be another area that I probably delve into when I feel like it's the right time. Right now I'm doing the brain stuff, but but that's another area that I probably will explore a good bit to see if I can connect some dots that way. So yeah,
yeah. So for people listening, so we have the opportunity then to look at some of the energy aspects of healing that can happen, and then your background in shamanic healing, and you've said meditation several times, so that opportunity to bring some of those ideas in for people who've never done that. This will be all new, but an opportunity to experience what it means and why you would even consider it. And then that opportunity of, sometimes, yes, we do know our history, but we don't give it much value aside from the story.
Right.
And so then this deep dive into the historical aspect from an energetic perspective, which is something I do enjoy doing and finding out. So there's a lot that we can discover in areas that, like you said, is not being considered by the people who work close to the medical model. And they're looking at structure. They're looking at chemical reaction. They're not necessarily looking at quantum physics and, and folklore and mythology and those things that do have a basis in, like you said, that was the culture of the time, and then the culture changed.
Yep.
So we have a chance to dive deep into that.
Good.
I did want to bring forward Dr. Charles Krebs, because his work with the brain has also been incredible. And it comes through from the energy kinesiology side. I'm going to say it that way. In Canada, we don't say it that way. It would be BioEnergetic Wellness. But his book is energy kinesiology. But he also has a book about the brain. And so that could be very valuable for people looking for a resource. And I've studied with him, and I've done lots of work with him. So that can be valuable. All right. So we have done a deep dive. What we wanted to do for the listeners was bring a couple of tools forward that could be helpful in balancing the emotions, and also to be able to just bring balance and flow. And these are very simple tools. And I'm just going to invite people to sit back, relax, and enjoy and participate with us. But then if you find that you really like what we've done, then to be able to kind of put that in your toolbox for wellness. Okay, so you ready to dive into this?
Absolutely.
Okay, so the first one I'm going to share comes from Dr. Sheldon Deal, and he's a naturopath and a chiropractor and an applied kinesiologist. And with this one, it's known as injury response technique. And I had to do some studying for a long time with him because he only gave little snippets. However, I've seen incredible change to the body physically and how the body can open up and let go. And so as we were talking about how ginger can invite people to let go, to be able to receive, the body in its tightness is not going to be able to open to anything if it's going to hold and clench. So we do need to let that go. And this is an emotional release without talking about emotions, which is great.
Good.
So you might want to just kind of check in to see where you might be stiff or tight, and more time maybe with it if you want to play with it later. It could be turning the head to notice what it feels like. haven't done that for a little while. It's tight. Could be shoulders. Could be reaching down towards your toes and noticing what the back of the leg feels like. And then what we're going to do is take the fingers and make a cone. And you're just going to put it by your jaw. And we're just going to nod the head 3 times. And what we're doing is, our intention here is to just let emotion release so that the body can calm. Just nice, simple intention, not too in depth. That's going back into the base of the skull, and it's going right into the amygdala, all the survival emotions, and it's just giving this new radiance about it. Okay, then we're going to take our fingertip and put it at the back on an anterior fontanelle, posterior fontanelle. You're going to just nod your head 3 more times. Now, when we're stressed, all the bones in the skull will tighten and they'll lock. And that can give a lot of stress into how the brain functions. So this is a way to release that. And the last is, if you notice some spot that was tight, then you could put your hand on that spot or think about it, depending what you want to do, and then nod your head 3 more times. All right. Just give yourself a nice deep breath. And then if you just want to turn your head again, see if the range of motion has changed. You heard me laugh. It changed significantly. Did it change for you?
Yeah, a little. I think I've got a lot of tension right in here, so I'm going to do some more of that. But I feel much more relaxed. Yeah.
Perfect. So this is a lovely way, because lots of times people think they've got to talk about their emotions, but emotions can be pocketed in the structure, and we just need to show them how to get out and move on so we can replace it. Okay, so that would be one. Now, you don't want to do too many of those, so just let it sit, because you are changing what's happening in the brain. So just let it relax, deep breathe, and, tomorrow, the next day, you think, let me see if I can release some more tension in some way. Okay, so now the other one that I wanted to share is a figure 8 pattern. And the figure 8s, you and I talked last week, and since then, this one has been so pronounced in the last few days. And it's showing itself in a lot of new ways, which is wonderful. So maybe those will show up in another episode. But for today, we have Wayne Cook's Hookup. And this is creating a figure 8 pattern, is how tissue in our body functions, but also how energy transfers, both inside the body and on the outside. So if you cross one foot, one ankle over the other ankle, and then if you cross the wrists over, you can link your fingers if you wish, and then you can bring them up, bring them to your heart if you want, or you can leave them in your lap. And if that isn't comfortable, you can just take your fingers and just cross them over, and then your fingers will touch and kind of underneath the collarbone, which actually ends up being a lung alarm point, which is a lovely way to calm. And we're just going to hang out there with our tongue on the roof of the mouth and breathe deeply. This one is great lying in bed. And it could be before you get out of bed and how you want your day to go. Or it could be at the end of the day and just reflecting on, how was my day? What were some of the highlights? And the part 2 is to put the feet side by side, put the fingertips together, and you're just going to bring them in front of your belly button. And we talked about 5 elements today. 5-element theory, we're making a connection back to the systems in the body that are part of 5 elements. And there's one other tool, which we won't share on the podcast, but if people are interested, they can always reach out, and that's the assemblage point reset. And that's how the energy flows in and out of the body. But for today, I think to release the emotion off the back of the skull, and then to bring those figure 8 patterns back into flow can be really helpful. Yeah, it feels a little bit calmer.
No, a lot calmer. And it just like a flush of beautiful energy kind of filled me up, which is nice. I didn't know I was lacking that. So,
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? And that's the other
yeah,
piece. We think we're doing okay until we do a change like this, and then you realize, oh, I wasn't doing as well as I thought.
right. Yeah. Yeah. So, thank you. That was
Yeah,
awesome.
you're welcome. You're welcome. All right, Laurin, thank you for your openness, your courage, your willingness to share your journey with us. And I'm looking forward to our monthly conversations. And, you're doing your deep dive. I'll be doing things that are going to come my way because we've opened the conversation. And I look forward to seeing what that means for us. But it's wonderful to be able to offer to our listeners some practical tools. And then you're going to lead us on a deep soul nourishment. I'm going to call it that.
Hey, good.
Yeah. So thank you.
Thank you.
As you've joined us today, I want you to think about some of the things that we've talked about. If you want to jot down some notes, some things that you resonated with, the tools that we've offered, the ideas we've brought forth, and then take a moment to pause, sip on your tea, and just bring in that nourishment and to remember you are more powerful than you've imagined. And we're here to show you that and shed a light on it and to remove the fear and the anxiety that can be around a subject like dementia, but also for the opportunity for us to age gracefully and age with joy. So, cheers, Laurin. I'm going to bring a little bit more delightful in.
Mancha.
Love that we share a Scottish history.
Yeah.
I'm the Bell family, though, so we're a little bit of a different clan. Awesome. Be well, everyone. Take care of yourselves. And until next time, we look forward to the next conversation. Thank you for listening to Be Well with Dr. Michelle Greenwell. There are a couple of resources I want to just point out. When you go to the website, greenwellcenter.com, you'll have a pop-up window. That pop-up gives you the top 8 easy stress releasers that you can use every day. That's something you can put beside your computer, the bathroom mirror, beside the bedside table. A great resource. Also, my YouTube channel. It is full of playlists with all kinds of different ways that you can activate energy and bring vitality into your day. You can find that when you go to YouTube at Michelle Greenwell. And last, if you're a Linktree person, Linktree, linktr.ee/Greenwell Center. That has all my resources in one spot. Those are for intricate little things that you can't get everywhere. And it's a wonderful way for me to be able to share all the different aspects of the kind of work I do. So thank you for listening. Be sure to drink that tea. And if you want to have the tea blend that was shared in the podcast today, then be sure to check out capebretontea.ca. Have a wonderful day.